are live. Welcome to the Babadook Thoughts. Now, I'm probably going to skip most of the disclaimers because it is crazy hot. So I'm just going to real quick skim if there's stuff that I especially... Yeah, so content warning / trigger warning. I am going to be discussing grief. Now, let's see. I don't have a problem with violence and gore in general. I think it's one of my favorite horror movies in general. I also love Cronenberg's The Fly, Videodrome, etc. Let's see. Yeah, but personally, I don't think it's wrong to put violence in fiction, except for the following exceptions. If it could encourage xenophobia, if it could make people think that violence is a solution, there are almost no problems that violence solves in real life, and that's one of the things I really love about this movie. Violence is not the solution. I mean, I suppose you could say that in part, like, Sam has to, you know, yeah, like Sam, holy, it's way too freaking hot. Okay, excuse me. Obviously, Sam needs to prevent Emilia from hurting him, and there's some violence there, but other than that, yeah, it's not, and that's something that I'm going to be discussing more in the second section, but yeah. I don't have a problem with film, sexuality, and nudity, disturbing and upsetting in general. Most of my favorite movies, and in my opinion, the only way sex can be wrong is if consent is violated and or it's cheating. Let's see. And I might swear at least some in this video. Roughly, I'm not going to be swearing like non-stop, but there is a little swearing in the movie, so I feel like that makes it more, yeah. Let's see. Right, so yeah, following is a short list supplied by the IMDb, more like this list of movies that are similar to this, and let's see. Yeah, so most of these I haven't watched, but let's see. Yeah, I'm only going to give ratings for the ones I've watched, but this will give you an idea of what the movie's being compared to, as well as how little I watch of more recent horror movies. It follows The Witch, The Conjuring, and Hereditary. And the two I've watched are The Cabin in the Woods, which I gave an 8 out of 10, and Sinister, which I also gave an 8 out of 10. Honestly, Sinister is almost a 10 out of 10 for me. There's really very, very little about that movie. But anyway, now, I made note of some MST3Ks that I might do. I just want to make clear I love almost everything about this movie, so I'm not criticizing the movie by doing that. I'm not trying to make light of something serious. This is one of the best horror movies I've watched. I could say in recent years, but again, I don't know that much about recent. But it's one of the best horror movies I've ever watched, and yeah. Let's see. Now, I streamed this movie through my library's, streaming service, so I haven't paid anything, through taxes, obviously. But so yeah, if I'm not sure if I'm going to say anything negative in this video, but if I do, it's not out of bitterness. I really appreciate. I saw some people say that, the after half an hour into the movie, or the second half of the movie is just tedious and repetitive. First of all, I don't agree, and I'm going to get more into that in the last chunk of the first section. But second of all, I really appreciate the restraint, because this movie could have been, I've watched horror movies that are way too long, and where they're so in love with what they can do to scare the viewer that they just keep going on and on and on, and it's just like, I'm not saying that every horror movie should be short. Ah, I should have written down an example of a long horror movie that's incredible. Maybe I'll think of it at some point in the video. But not every horror movie has to be like 90 minutes. But I think you know when yeah when you're working towards the length, and some of this happens when you're writing the script, some of it happens, yeah, the final decision is when you're editing it. Don't make your movie longer than it really needs to be. And horror movies, because they can be very draining, they can be very, like, I mean, after a while, it's just there's only so long we can be really, really tensed up and constantly, anxious and such. And there's only so much violence and messed up material that you can watch. So I think this does a really great job of. I guess maybe some people would say that the movie, just barely gets to 90 minutes and that it's padded to get there. I don't think so. There's no scene that I would remove. I don't think there's anything that I would really trim. I feel like they managed to fit in an incredible amount of stuff in a short amount of time. Like, yeah, there are other horror movie filmmakers who would make, like, for example, The Birthday Party would maybe be a bit longer. They would spend, you know, yeah. I think some horror filmmakers would make the the last chunk where they're just basic basically it's the two of them alone in the house. They would make that longer. The Yeah, I think they did a really incredible job of making these really short scenes work really well, because once you've seen Sam, attack this one girl, that's all you need to see. You don't, like, other filmmakers might have made, had, they would maybe put in stuff where, like, he's doing things to scare the other girls, or, just, yeah. But the fact that, yeah, and I appreciate that it didn't really, like, obviously the we don't spend as long. Was her name Ruby? I feel like her name was Ruby. The sister's Claire. Claire's daughter Ruby. It's her birthday and she gets knocked out of the treehouse. We don't spend a lot of time with her. She has very little screen time, but you still feel it, like, that is messed up. I don't think it's padded. I don't think that I feel it's, sometimes I really feel bad for, like, filmmakers or musicians, or, like, who just don't, like, if you don't have enough ideas for an entire album if you're a musician, or enough ideas for an entire 90-minute movie if you're a filmmaker. I mean, it's really difficult, especially if you fall somewhere between, like, I don't know, I guess today if you go to, yeah, like HBO, I think they make, like, hour-long episodes. What I was gonna say was, if your story lands somewhere between the 42 minutes of, a network television, like a Twilight Zone episode, and then, like, the 90 minutes that are basically the minimum. The I feel like the movie mirrors probably should have been, shit. Sorry. Maybe that'll be the only swear in this movie, the video, because there actually only is the one swear in the movie, isn't there? When I really think about it, I think when she tells him to eat, yeah, which also, yeah, I think it might be, and that makes it all the more effective. She very little screen time is devoted to her abusing Samuel, and I think there's only the one swear. So that really does make that, yeah. Let's see, what was the thing? the thing was, I'm sorry, I don't remember what the movie's called, but Lena Headey is the lead, and I think, no, it's not called Mirrors, right? Because Mirrors is the one with Amy Smart, I want to say. I apologize. My brain is melted cheese due to the heat. I'm gonna try to. Okay, but the movie with Lena Headey, it's got Mirror in the name. That movie should have been an episode of like the Twilight Zone. It's padded like crazy. And anyway, but yeah, you know, if you fall between, if you've got a good solid hour of material, but less than that, oh, you're kind of gutting the story. More than that, you're starting to pad. You know, it really does suck to beat. But I don't feel like she padded this movie. I don't feel like, you know, yeah, she had enough ideas for a solid, you know, 90 minutes. And no, I am very impressed with how efficient this is. Because when you really, like, if you just sit down and think about, you know, you've got the shopping where you see Samuel, you know, speaking his mind, as they later call it. You've got the birthday party, you've got the doctor's visit. You know, in the birthday party, you have several very important things. You have the fact that Samuel clearly, excuse me, does not want to go away from Amelia, and then when he does, you know, Amelia snaps at one of these. You know, I saw an analysis where a person referred to it as, you know, Claire and her friends have champagne problems, and that's very well put. I'm afraid I don't. What the flick? I think I'm sorry, I do not remember, but she was awesome. She did great analysis. So you know, all the just so good. And the episode was specifically called Babadook. You know, so that anyway. You know, yeah. So Amelia snaps at the champagne problems. You have the doctor's visit. Did I already mention that? You have the car, and the, you know, being confronted by this guy who can't see. I mean, some of the time it is also like, no, actually, no, yeah, thinking about it, no. Basically, he's not this awful, like, super, you know, he's not, this is not champagne problems. You know, he points out, you're driving on the wrong side of the road with a kid in the car. You could have gotten someone killed. And it's not, you know, obviously we sympathize more with her because we understand, we see things from her perspective, but it also underlines that her problem is invisible. You you can't tell from looking at her that you know, he looks at her and he thinks she's irresponsible. He doesn't realize that, you know, at this point she's hallucinating. She's seeing and hearing things that are not there, and just, yeah, it, you know, and yeah, you have the section of the movie where they're at home, and only, you know, let's see, and you have the wrap up. You have the few appearances of Oscar, which, like, such great use of Oscar. The we don't actually see him very much, which makes the fact, when we actually see him, it's incredibly impactful because of how little we actually see him. And let's see. Yeah, honestly, you know, I could see, like, the I don't know that I would call the movie The Strangers padded, but it definitely, I guess with that, it's more that it's, you know, but I would say this is far superior to that, and I do still love that movie, although I enjoy the second one more, but I am more, you know, yeah. Anyway, oh, okay, let's see, the right. What was the other thing that I was, the I'm not asking you. I'm thinking out loud. I know you can't answer me. let's see. Crap, I right on the tip of my tongue. There, there are some people who would have made the 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 last, I don't know, 40 minutes of the movie, had made that into a 90-minute movie. Only them trapped in the house together. And I don't know. I think maybe that could have been, maybe that could make a good movie. But I'm really glad they did it the way that they did it. It really is like, you just feel how Amelia is slowly losing control. Things are getting worse and worse, and I'm really glad that we don't see how she was before Samuel, back when she was with Oscar, but we do see the days leading up to, you know it's not completely, she's not hallucinating from the start of the movie. you know you get a sense, you see the kind of things that, what's it called, the Samuel, you see his behavior on a regular day, on a good day, this, yeah. Anyway, my own quote-unquote film critic rating for this is a 9 out of 10. My personal rating is a 10 out of 10. I absolutely loved it. So, let's see, yeah, just a real brief off-topic thing. I'm not entirely sure if I've mentioned Your Brain on Cracked in my videos before, but I quite like the format. I quite like the format right from the start, and I was really happy to see, they made just like a few minor changes or additions to the format in the most recent episode on test audiences. And I really don't have anything specific to say about it, so I'm just going to leave it at that, in case someone's watching this video who hasn't watched that video yet and doesn't want it spoiled. And that brings us to the first section, notes taken while watching. Before I start, I want to make absolutely clear, I have a lot of empathy both for Amelia and Samuel. Excellent opening shot, very dreamlike. When you realize that the monster is the mother's grief, it actually is sweet that one of the first things Samuel says, one of the first things we see is Samuel promising her he's going to defeat the monster, and he says several times that he's going to protect her, and it is this thing. I really appreciate how mature and emotionally intelligent the writing is, because so many movies would have made Samuel just this little devil child. But if you really look, he has problems, but he also, like, by the end of the movie you realize, I don't know, I guess not everybody agrees with this interpretation, but it is a fairly common interpretation that the Babadook is basically the grief. It's the pent up negative emotions in Amelia, due to the death of Oscar, and and this has grown for these, almost 7 years. When the movie starts, almost 7 whole years. And the let's see, yeah, the the thing that upsets Samuel, the reason he has trouble sleeping, the reason he's building weapons and all this stuff, he can perceive that there's something really, really bothering his mother, really hurting his mother, and he wants to help. He wants to help her, and because he's 6, he turns 7 at the end of the movie, I think. So he's basically 7 years old. To him, the thing that's hurting her must be a monster who hides under the bed and in the closet. It must be something that can be defeated with violence. And just, yeah, it's not that he's this just little monster with absolutely no. It's hurting him too that she's grieving, and obviously because the grief, part of what is upsetting her is the it is this thing of being a parent to I mean, basically every time she looks at Samuel, she sees Oscar. She's reminded that she doesn't have Oscar anymore, and she, so when he starts having problems, that just makes, she to some extent she kind of resents Samuel, and that yeah, that doesn't exactly make so when he starts having these behavioral problems, that makes things even worse. Which it's a real vicious cycle. I want to say his name is Robbie. The potential romantic partner has really great chemistry with Amelia. They're really sweet together, and it's they have this great like from right away. They both have in part it's that he's legitimately sweet. He can she he asks how are you, she says fine, and he says you you don't have to be fine all the time, but he's not just this like this completely bland milk toast. They have a similar sense of humor. We see that she can get kind of snarky sometimes, and I think literally the first thing we hear him say, he sees that she's standing in the kitchen. Yeah, because she was she made, I guess, tea. I don't know. Would they give coffee to anyway to this old this yeah this old woman at the that she's helping take care of, working as a nurse at this place, and the woman, I don't think they spell it out, but I kind of got the sense that she's like, here's your tea with sugar, and then the woman says, I don't want sugar. I don't think they really spell it out, but I got the sense that she did ask for, did I say sugar? I meant milk, sorry. Yeah, I get the sense that she was very careful to make sure to prepare it the exact right way, and say, here it is, just like you ordered it. But this this elderly woman, she's has like problems with her memory or something, and so she has to go and make her another cup. So Robbie walks in, sees her, making tea for this woman, and sees a woman in a kitchen, and says, ah, a woman's rightful place. And even if you at first were like, ah, don't tell me he's some misogynist, she immediately responds. I forget exactly what she says. It's something like, get her back to the kitchen and set her to work, or something, but she just immediately, like, they are two peas in a pod. They are so good together. It's honestly very sweet that Amelia stands up for Sam when talking to the people from the school, and I like that little thing of like, don't don't call him that boy or the boy. He has a name, the and that's like, it's one of the first things we hear her say, and it's one of the last things we hear her say in the movie. Sorry, for a second that kind of made it sound like she dies at the end. If you're watching this video, hopefully you already watched the movie and know that she does not die at the end. The yeah, the early in the movie she says it to the school people, and there at the end she says it to the you know the Babadook using Oscar's form to manipulate her. I think I saw someone say that they thought that the Babadook was actually, or they wished that the Babadook was actually Oscar's ghost. Again, thank you, Jennifer Kent, writer director Jennifer Kent, for not making it something like that. We have enough movies like that. Thank you for it being psychological. It's an emotional issue. We don't. Not every horror movie needs an external thing. You can, some of the scariest things are not external. Are the internal things, and I really love. I legitimately feel like it is simply not supported. The movie does not support an interpretation that says that the Babadook is actually Oscar's ghost, or that that really is Oscar she's seeing. No, at first it seems like it, but then he starts talking like the Babadook. At first it's with the words, then it's also the distorted voice and repeating the same thing, saying the same thing several times. It's not that the Babadook is Oscar, it's that the grief is, which is also why when she sees him, she almost immediately he starts saying something that's just wrong. This is not Oscar. It's not even really her memory of Oscar. She realizes it right away. She takes several steps back away from it, and she's aware this is not Oscar. It's not even how I remember Oscar. What the Babadook, the Babadook, when we see Oscar there, that's basically like the it's this cumulative kind of, it's all the negative feelings that she has related to his death as a, you know yeah, if the negative feelings she had from his, and that is also in part what the Babadook is in general, but if you only took the negative emotions she had about Oscar related to Oscar's death and you animated them, that's what it would look like. Oscar standing there saying, "You can give me the boy," over and over in this distorted voice, and promising they can be together again. And yeah, like you see the pages of the book, when she gets the book the second time, and she snaps the dog's neck, she strangles the Sam. Sorry, I almost called him the boy, and she slits her own throat. And you get the sense that if she had continued, excuse me, once Oscar's shape, that's, I think I'm gonna refer to it as Oscar's shape there at the end, she had if she hadn't backed away from him when she realized something was wrong, if she had continued hugging him, she had agreed, you know, yeah, she does very nearly kill Sam, but if she had, fully the actually, yeah, I guess technically the yeah, the let's see, yeah, what I'm saying is the you can believe that she would have gone ahead and cut her own throat after killing Sam, especially if it hadn't been this sort of forcible possession. And that really is like the I mean, you are basically watching the struggle between her positive feelings for Sam and her awareness that this can't be real. Oscar can't have come back. That's impossible. That's her backing away, and that's her trying to get away, and then her being possessed. And in fact, since the Babadook is all in her head, the Oscar shape is the negative. So, that's the part of her that's just been in this deep dark pit for 7 years, not just, almost no, you know break from just constantly, you know feeling sad and alone because of Oscar, and worrying about what's going to happen with Sam, because she keeps being told by other people that there are problems with him, and she also herself experiences things that she, you know, yeah. I really and the briefly there near the end of the movie when she is possessed, yeah, briefly it is like the negative feelings won, and then you know Samuel brings her back by showing her compassion and the let's see, and then right after that there's this stuff where Sam is pulled away from her by the Babadook, who we don't see him directly, but and then she confronts the Babadook, says, you're trespassing, that whole thing. That's now, once she can kind of, briefly there she was lost to the negative emotions related to but when she climbs back out of that pit, she does, yeah, she asserts that she's going to protect Samuel. I've seen people criticize the, the I don't know. I love the ending. I'm not sure I can think of anything about it that I really think should be changed. I don't know. I mean, some people, I guess, wanted some kind of like big showdown, as you have in some horror movies. Some kind of like a Friday the 13th kind of thing, or slasher movie sequel kind of thing, with like a physical battle where you see, yeah. I think the yeah, I really love how they handled the ending. I think the movie does a good job of making clear Samuel is legitimately troubled. This is not a case of like, you know, it's extremely important for this movie that we don't leave the movie thinking she just doesn't want to put in the effort to raise this kid. That would complete the movie would crumble. That's like the example I like to use is, imagine if you were watching Inception and you didn't buy into the concept that that now they're actually in a dream and there are dreams within dreams. The movie falls apart. The movie does not work for you, and that's part of, the fact that Nolan could pull that off is absolutely incredible. And the and the fact that Jennifer Kent pulled it off with the Babadook, because you really don't, like, I can't imagine anyone watching this movie. I don't know. I'm sure there's some user review out there. I didn't read all of them. Whatever. I would say that personally, I found it, sufficiently well communicated that they're really, you know, he cannot keep behaving in these ways. These are, yeah, it is legitimately like the among other things, he brings the dart gun to school. That's unacceptable. Like I said, I have a ton of empathy for Samuel. I have a lot of empathy for children in general. I really hate when people don't listen to children, but there are there have to be boundaries. That is not acceptable behavior, and yeah, it really is. And in fact, when you're told that the that he brought this to school, she in that they talk about that they're gonna be like monitoring him, and she protests and she says, I'm gonna take him to a different school, one that doesn't one that doesn't see him as a problem. So again, like, the movie does a really good job establishing both that, he does, there are things he's doing that are unacceptable, but also she hasn't given up on him. She so you can really understand, like, yeah. And let's see. So the what's the there's one other thing related to that. Let's see. What was it? It was that, right? And yeah, and they're at the end of the movie. At the end of the movie, he's firing the dart at a dartboard, and she's like, "Great shot," and so it's like, it's not that it's completely unacceptable for him to have unusual interests. Like, realistically speaking, but that, at the end of the day, the movie isn't really trying to depict reality completely, you know, quite clearly. At the very start, the very first shot makes it clear that this is not completely reality. In part it's also a dream, but a lot of the movie, you do see things that can't completely have happened, and sometimes the movie underlines, no, this did not happen. Like the hole in the wall with bugs, for example. There at the end of the movie, it's still not, but it's more like, metaphorically speaking, it's saying it's okay for him to have unusual interests. Obviously in real life, please do not give something that like, don't give something that fires any kind of projectile to a 7-year-old. Basically, or unless it's like a water pistol, or which is not a projectile, I guess. Whatever, nothing that could hurt anyone. But yeah. Anyway, but by doing it, and it's also, she's Australian. They have a pretty, like, their sense of humor is very edgy. So, in part, it's probably, kind of joking. No, I don't think someone's gonna watch this movie and actually give a dart gun to a 7-year-old. But the it's showing that she isn't really, she's not rejecting him and who he is, or at least not anymore. She's willing to yeah. And yeah, the book is really unbelievably disturbing. The movie does a great job of communicating how sexually frustrated the mother is. I don't want anything bad to happen to you, Mom. Nothing bad is going to happen, Sam. I'm going to protect you. On some level, he understands that she's grieving and how negative of an influence it is on her, how painful it is, and he wants to help. But she's not letting herself grieve, thinking that that is going to help him. She's sacrificing her happiness and well-being for him. And I really appreciate, because again, that is, part of what the movie is in part this kind of, goes into how difficult it can be to raise a child, especially as a single parent. And, and with no real, like, basically, nobody really helps Amelia. The I I think Amelia herself straight out points out to Claire, you don't, you've never helped me take care of Sam, and the, let's see, let's see, and the next door neighbor is this really old woman. So there isn't really, and Robbie might be able to help, and he even, like, it's really sweet of him to come by, and he brought a present for Sam and this stuff, but to her, like, basically, if she accepted help from him, most people don't even offer her help, but if she accepted help from him and again, the next door neighbor, it's not, she's willing to offer help, but it feels wrong to accept help from this, this poor old woman who, you know, I want to say they say she has Parkinson's, that, yeah, just, and but with Robbie, he does offer, but it almost, to her, it almost feels like she would be, like if she hasn't fully processed the grief of losing her husband, then it's, to her it almost feels like she's still married. She that's, so it would be like cheating on him. You know. Let's see. And let's see. Yeah, and it turns out it's like, was it 9 o'clock or something, and she calls and says, oh, Sam was sick with a fever. No, I couldn't get to the phone. He was throwing up. Very clever. Robbie really is just the sweetest. Literally, everyone who needs a Robbie in their life should have one. That's it. You get no birthday. There's a party and you can't come. The movie isn't actually going to kill off that dog, is it? It's so cute. Before we see the Babadook himself as basically, a suit and, hat, and we see the suit in the basement, which, obviously was Oscar's. So the yeah, it really is like the in part, the Babadook is the like I said, not the ghost of Oscar, but it is like, yeah, it's the grief personified, basically. Do you want to die? It can sound like he's intentionally threatening that he'll do violence to her, but really what he means is, if she takes away the weapon, they'll both be defenseless against the Babadook. I've already got this doll, Mom. Like mother, like daughter. I do appreciate that the mother does have a decent comeback. Excuse me. Let me think. She said, then they're sisters. They can go shopping together. Or that's her sister. They something like that. And they kind of sort of try to relate to Amelia's pain. And then one of them says, like, what was it? I don't even have time for exercise these days. And Amelia just deadpans, that's a real tragedy. Just such a badass. By the time that she talks to the doctor, the movie has made it clear Samuel is very draining to take care of, so we really understands how she feels without the movie just being intolerable too much. And I acknowledge some people watched it and they felt like it's just too much. This kid is too annoying and such. And it is like, I think I think it's important to remember horror movies are not really supposed to be easy or pleasant to watch. And that's not to say, like, there are horror movies out there that are just bad. I'm fortunate enough to have only watched a single Uwe Boll movie, that being The House of the Dead, because I love those video games. He's bad at, or I don't know. I don't know anything about his. I've heard that he's apparently gotten better, but now he's just kind of boring. Anyway, that movie is bad. That is a bad movie. Even if you don't watch it as a horror movie, if you watch it as like almost a comedy or an action movie, it's a bad movie. So there is such a thing as bad horror movies, but I don't think a horror movie is bad just because some of the characters are annoying. Not if it's I think it's bad if they're not supposed to be annoying. If they're supposed to be cool or likable, but they're annoying, that's a bad thing. Doesn't necessarily mean the entire movie is bad. But this movie, it's critical to this movie that Samuel is annoying. If again, the movie falls apart if you watch this movie and you don't think that Samuel would be that bad to take care of, or if you don't think that Amelia really has anything to worry about when looking at the some of the things that he does and says, and you know, so yeah, it really is the and 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 I think they did a great job of not making it over the top. Now, some user reviews say that the movie gets repetitive half an hour in, so that is after she leaves the doctor's office when the Babadook book reappears with the new pages, which are absolutely horrifying, by the way. But I really don't think it ever got repetitive. I think it's again like I think some of the people who say that I hate I hate saying that a reviewer is wrong. I really don't think like unless they're just straight up wrong. You know, I think some of the people who watched this movie and felt that it was repetitive, I think they're maybe just kind of used to horror movie. They're to them a good horror movie is one that has, you know, maybe they want more locations, more characters, more monsters. Maybe they want the Babadook to do more varied things to scare people, you know. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to like those kinds of things, but I do think it's wrong to ask this movie. I don't think you should. If a movie is good and well made, I don't think you should be asking for it to be something else. Just, you know, like unless we're talking about something that happens far too rarely. You know, like representation, for example. There needs to be way more representation in movies. That's the thing. You know, you could make an argument for that kind of thing, but the which apparently I don't know a lot about Jennifer Kent's second movie. I want to say it's called The Nightingale, but apparently it's about how badly some, you know, I'm sorry, I'm gonna try to pronounce this correctly. Aboriginals. I'm sorry, I'm not really, the indigenous, the people indigenous to Australia before the whole colonizing. Yeah, I guess it was a colonizing, wasn't it? And you know, just I really I have so much respect for this woman, and I'm definitely gonna watch that movie. That is just, yeah, the I think it's fair to ask for more representation and that sort of thing, which is another part of you know, this movie is so much. This is this is the kind of horror movie that a woman makes. This is, you know, I a lot of the horror movies that I love the most are made by men, but I do think that I don't think a man would have come up with. I don't know. I'm sorry. Is that too stereotypical? Like, I don't think a cis man, a straight cis man, I don't think could have completely come out. It would have come out somewhat differently, and I really appreciate that. Yeah, which is not to say that men can't deal with grief in movies well. Just a few weeks ago, I talked about Don't Look Down, which was directed by a man, Nicholas Roeg, I want to say. So, you know, the let's see. Although maybe it helps that the short story it's adapted from was written by a woman. But anyway, the right representation movies is something worth fighting for. But I really don't think that every horror movie, like if you watch a horror movie and it's not made in the way that you're used to horror movies being made, instead of immediately saying it's a bad horror movie, try to think about why it was made the way it was made. Again, unless it's just bad, unless it's Uwe Boll. you know, or otherwise bad. You know, the Platinum Dunes also made. I don't know if they still do. I guess the only two Platinum Dunes movies I've watched are the remakes of Friday the 13th and The Nightmare on Elm Street, but those are both very bad movies. You know, there is such a thing as making a bad horror movie, but there's a difference between a horror movie that's just different from what you're used to and one that's actually bad. And I don't I barely understand how anyone can really call this bad. I understand how you can say that it's different from what you're used to. I 100% understand that. But anyway, I think that the movie I really love that the last chunk of it is just these two people trapped in the same house. You know, she locks the door. She what's it called? She cuts the phone and the, you know, and we've already been told there's no food in the fridge, and you know we've seen that the place is kind of a mess, you know, and again, this is not. I'm not saying that. No, this is clearly that she's in a situation that she can't completely handle, and we do see at the end of the movie, you know, she's still single, but she is now capable of, you know, she can she's now she's setting boundaries for Sam without, you know, without making him really unhappy. As you know, earlier in the movie, sometimes when she'll try to raise him, he'll get really upset, you know, and just the yeah, you know, by the end, you know, they're both much more well adjusted. They're much more comfortable with the situation they're in, and again, I really you know, from this movie again, it would be a huge mistake if this movie ended up feeling like a condemnation of single parents, because that's wrong. You know, the different people handle it at different, you know, obviously one of the really big problems in this movie is she has no support system. She is alone with this, you know, this kid Sam, who has some problems. You know, she needs help. She needs you know, but some people are single parents are absolutely amazing at, you know, so it's not. Now let's see. If you're so worried, call the police. I gotta go. One of my friends is suffering from a tragic lack of exercise. How do you know it's the same person? Well, he talks just like in the book you burned. Talk about a one-track mind for this cop. Seriously though, at the end of the day, there really is not much that they can do with the situation. I really appreciate she makes smart decisions. You know, first she calls, you know, she talks to her sister about getting help, and then she contacts the police. You know, the and it is, you know, the you know, ultimately part of the reason that the situation is so difficult for others to, you know, the you know, the movie is carefully written in a way that means that, you know, hypothetically, if like let's see, yeah, hypothetically, let's say that when the two social workers, I want to say they're called, when they come by, if Amelia had already threatened Sam directly by this point, and he told them they would take him away. You know, at that point, like, if the scene ends without them taking him away, that's then it's just like, well, okay, what universe does this? I'm not saying it's not completely taking place in our world, or at least it's not. It's through a lens at least, but that would just be too much. But as it is, at the end of the day, the yeah, the movie is carefully written in a way that the police and social workers and such can't really solve the problem for and that is, yeah, it has to be the you know I mean, yeah, I get that some people are gonna think that's really cheesy and corny, and maybe it is, but maybe it's kind of true that at the end of the day, at the end of the movie, it is the two of them are saved by their love for each other, and Amelia's and their determination to not give up on each other despite all the this is from Amelia's perspective, this kid is basically dangerous, and from Sam's perspective, mom keeps trying to attack me. Both of them have every reason in the world to, it would, no one would blame them for giving up on the other, for saying, I can't do this. I need somebody else to help me take care of this situation because this is just beyond me. But they don't. They care that deeply about each other that they're not gonna give up. And I do also like, they're at the end, the the Mrs. Roach, I want to say her name is, the neighbor, Mrs. Roach, does take care of Sam for, did they say how long? And anyway, she comes back from the hospital and she's like, oh, they did some stitches, it's okay. But yeah, after all of that, it's okay to ask for help. It's healthy. I'm slightly torn on the ending not having. Let's let me think. Robbie isn't there at the end. Robbie doesn't really appear after. I think the last time we see him is when he comes to their home and brings, what was it, a model plane for Sam because he thinks that Sam is sick. And on the one hand, I like that you know, it's not quite life begins at man, but it is like that's probably a trope for that as well. I don't know what it's called, but like man solves all problems or something. I don't know what the trope would be called. And like, yeah, that would kind of, to some extent, even possibly like unintentionally, communicate. You can't have a full life if you don't have a romantic partner, and you can't be a single parent. These kinds of things. Actually, never mind. I'm not on two minds on the subject. I am glad that, because of those reasons, I am glad that. But I would have understood the decision if Robbie was there at the end as well. And Mrs. Roach points out Oscar also spoke his mind, just like Samuel. So that's part of what bothers Amelia, how much like his father he is. And obviously, also, you can't have a 7-year-old going around saying these things. The bugs are really creepy. We've got to at a bad time. And how? The movie gets a lot of mileage out of the electrical lamps, like, I don't know what it's called, but like the electricity is kind of, like they're like the kind of what's it called? Crackling? I'm sorry, I do not remember what it's called. So, but I think again, if you watch the movie, you'll probably figure out what I mean. And I really appreciate that it makes use of these relatively simple but very effective, because that is creepy. It is creepy when that kind of thing happens. They never do say for sure if there is just a problem, do they? Or did I miss a line? It's possible that she at some point said, "Well, I talked to the electric company. They said there's nothing wrong." Honestly, there probably was at least one little bit about it. But yeah, like it's, I also saw some people in the user reviews saying it's just depressing, like as if that's a bad thing, or it's by accident or something. Like, again, if somebody forced you to watch this movie, I get, and it's not for you. I get maybe being frustrated, but presumably nobody did, and it's just not. Yeah, it's a depressing movie, and that's part of the idea. It's like I saw, I believe this was also from the What the Flick video, that she or was it the other, might have been the guy, but one of the two people in the video said that the house is basically painted in, what did they call it, pastels of gray, or something, gray pastels, something like that. And yeah, it is like every scene in the house, it is just this gray, dreary, just like everything's the same. There's no light, there's no brightness, there's no happiness, there's no warmth. Everything, it's the and it really, it gets it exactly right. And I also saw some people criticizing that, saying, and again, it's just like, I could understand criticizing it if it didn't have the intended effect, or like, I guess if the movie was sold to you, but then I don't think it was by the regular trailer. I watched two or three trailers. They all sold the movie to me as what it is. So I don't know who sold you a different movie. But yeah, I guess if you didn't think that it was going to be kind of dreary and sad, because again, it's supposed to be, and it's not like mired in it. It's not the. I have an example to make, but I don't know if I want to. Yeah, okay. I realize that not everybody is with me on this, but I don't think that the movie. Crap, what's it called? Lars von Trier's, which is actually, yeah, and she actually worked. Dogville, yes. Lars von Trier's Dogville, I don't think needed to be as long or as sad as it is. I think that movie could easily be trimmed, and I don't think it benefits the movie itself. I can understand if you're having like a really bad day and you just want to sit. I mean, what is that movie? 2.5 hours or something. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I love the Lord of the Rings movie, so it's not a bad thing that it's that long. It's a bad thing that it's that long, and just so much of it is just sad and depressed without much, like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm afraid I forget his exact diagnosis, but, or does he have more than one? But actually, yeah, I think he there might be at least one of his diagnoses help explain it. I think he might have been diagnosed with depression, and it is. And I'm not saying he's not allowed. He's allowed to make the movie he wants to make, obviously, and the movie has its audience for sure. I just don't think. I think it would at least have been. I think it would have made sense to make a slightly trimmed down version that isn't so mired in the sadness, because there are things in those, like, I know people who might enjoy parts of that movie, but I can't tell them to sit and watch that entire movie, knowing how sad the whole thing is, it's like I just and I really don't think that the movie benefits from that. I think it's one of those things where what's the saying? Misery loves company, where he just kind of he I don't know likes he gets some enjoyment out of just miring in the misery. And I'm not surprised that he's not making like super happy movies. Although has he made happy movies? I haven't watched everything he's done, but I just don't think it benefits the movie that it's so mired in its sadness. And yeah, what I'm saying is it's possible to make a movie that's mired in its sadness. I would say that one is. I really don't think this one is. I get like I don't know. I feel like if you dislike a horror movie, a lot of the time it can be, you should have spent more time researching. Like, I don't know what would make you think that this movie wouldn't be depressing. Let's see. I appreciate how distinctly inhumanly the Babadook, both, both the the way he moves and the noises he makes, it's almost like an insect like, crawling on the ceiling. Like it's almost as though he is a humanoid, human-sized insect, like those ones that crawled out of the hole in the wall. When Amelia sits in front of the TV all night, the movie really captures what it's like to try and stay awake in front of the TV while you have very dark thoughts. The kinds of things that appear on TV and that, yeah. I appreciate that the kid really did try to solve his problem of being hungry before, waking up his mother about it. You know, I, I threw up again, so so I have to eat. It's not healthy for me to not have food in my stomach. There's no food in the fridge. I have to take the medicine again, and you told me that I have to take it with food. These are all completely logical arguments. And she says, why do you always keep talking? And I saw somebody else also point out she's talking in a similar way to the Babadook. The Babadook, Duke, talking. It is yeah, it's just heartbreaking seeing Samuel cowering from his mother after she snaps at him. And there's also the bit where she feels really guilty, so she gets in like this huge bowl of ice cream, and he's like, like, from his face, like he's, Mom, I'm 7. I'm not, you know, even, I'm 7, and even I know you're not supposed to give that much ice cream to a 7-year-old at, in the middle of the night, or it's like it's dark out. This is really not a good thing. So, but she she feels that guilty, and it is this thing like she goes back and forth between spoiling him, buying firecrackers for a 7-year-old, and letting him, like at one point she says, take that, take the oh, what was it called? Ah, the thingy throwing thing, catapult. Take that catapult off, or I'm gonna throw it out, or I'm gonna chuck it out. So you're aware that you can chuck it out. That's a thing you're consciously, actively not throwing out, because the moment that he leaves, you for like school or something, you could throw it out. It's not, he shouldn't have that thing. He breaks a window. He could have hurt someone. He does, at the end of the movie, he does hurt someone. He hurts her. You know, and so yeah, spoiling him with firecrackers, letting him keep these dangerous, things, and giving him all this ice cream, and he actually, you can tell that he feels kind of bad. He's like, this is not right, and he only takes a tiny bit of ice cream instead of like digging in like you might expect. Like if he was like this really terrible spoiled kid who just wants to get his way all the time, he would probably just chow down. Let's see, and then yeah, goes back and forth between spoiling him and abusing him and getting increasingly abusive over the course of the movie. And it really is like I saw a user review say that the movie shows what it's like growing up with a parent. I want to say a schizophrenic parent, and I can imagine it really and again like I can understand saying that this movie is not for you, but I don't understand saying that it's not an incredible movie. I think I saw one person say that it's not really a horror movie, it's a drama with some scary scenes. I I guess I can understand that, but it's not completely a drama. One of the like the gradually increasing threat to Sam and how she's losing control of her life. I don't think you could really do those elements justice as the movie does without making a horror movie. I think I it's kind of it's a is there a Kinsey scale for horror movies? Like it's not like if like let's see scariest movie let's okay let's if The Thing is a solid 10 and like I don't know, some PG-13 crappy American remake of a foreign horror movie is like a 1, you know, I guess it's not quite a 10 as far as wait, sorry, crap, I mixed metaphors. I was gonna say like yeah, sorry, I ended up saying a scale of what's scary and what isn't really scary, or what's a good or a bad horror movie. No, sorry, I mean it's not of all the horror movies I've watched horror movies that were more focused on specifically scaring the audience, and especially scaring the audience with. I mean, for a lot of the movie, what we're scared of is a little more. We're not like if you want to compare it to other movies where we're scared of either a child or a parent, well, there are movies where the child is basically a murderer, a psychopath, and there are movies of like where it turns out that a parent was just like yeah, like a killer or something. And this movie is neither. In this movie, neither of them are completely bad. It's just that the Babadook makes Samuel scary and dangerous, and Amelia scary and dangerous. But it is, yeah, and that's also a number of the people who criticize the movie specifically say that they wanted more of a monster movie out of him, basically. They wanted him to appear more and to dominate the movie more when, yeah, that's just not the movie that I really don't think that it's very helpful to criticize a movie that wasn't that isn't the kind of thing that you usually like for not being the kind of thing you usually like. Like I saw some like I've seen some people criticize you know let me think. Like they I don't know, I feel kind of bad for saying this, but like there are times when the child actor who plays Sam is like basically smiling, or he's not, when he's supposed to be scared or threatening or upset or something. And you know, I don't, yeah, you know, maybe some, you know, I can understand criticizing that, but criticizing it because it wasn't the kind of movie that you thought of it, just find a different movie, you know, like almost no matter what you wanted this movie to be, there's probably at least one horror movie out there that is what you wanted it to be. You know, yeah. Let's see. Okay, so let's see the of sorry of the I should specify of what I read of complaints of this movie. I'm not saying, you know, there again. It would be great with more variety in horror. Although we do, horror is one of the genres where if you really look, if you dig deep, there is a ton of variety to, you know, I also talked about that some for Don't Look Now. That's part of why some more modern audiences don't really like that movie, because they have very different expectations from horror movies. Anyway, let's see. So yeah, yeah, and she starts seeing bugs in the car, and the Babadook, you know, like it's gone from being that when they're at home in the dark, she, you know, she sees things, but now she's hallucinating during the day, which, excuse me, I mean, if you wanted something, you know, let's go with. I think the movie can work if most of the things, you know, there are definitely things that are hallucinations and such that are in characters' heads. But something that will help explain all these hallucinations would be a lack of sleep and a lack of just of rest. And Amelia starts sleeping with a violin in her arms to some, you know, to remember Oscar and to try to some extent pretend like he isn't actually gone. Nothing is getting in tonight. Nothing. Amelia is at this point abusive and neglectful of her son. He's not eating enough. He's scared of her. Very clever. He pretends to take the pill, but actually hides it using the magician trick. I really, I have got to admit, I did not see coming that all of this magician stuff would come back as, like, you know, in the last maybe 30 minutes. You know, yeah, the magician stuff, the traps and weapons he makes, you know, all this stuff comes back and is used and is extremely effective. I really, that when it first showed up in the movie, like the magician stuff shows that she doesn't have a lot of patience with him at least at that point. And the weapons help highlight that, you know, there is something like he shouldn't be thinking that much about violence. You know, whether it's because he's scared or hateful or what exactly, someone of that age should not be focusing so much on violence. That is a sign that there is something very wrong. I mean, I guess you could say nobody should focus that much on violence, but if an adult buys a weapon for home, you know, for self-defense, that doesn't necessarily mean that something's wrong. But if a 7-year-old is making actual weapons, you know, he can fire darts, he can launch this what is exactly this ball of, you know, he has weapons. He has weapons, and he occasionally attacks people or threatens them. You know, this is evidence that there is something wrong. I can see what others mean when they say that the movie gets, I guess the word is repetitive in the last, you know, in the second half or so. And you know, I hate to be that guy, but I think you're just misjudging it. It's showing her gradually becoming increasingly unstable, losing control. You really don't want to rush with this sort of thing. I personally consider a strength of the movie, that it shows it, and it shows as much as it does. Like, I can imagine there might be people who would remove several of these things, and it wouldn't have the same effect. Like, yeah, hypothetically, like, if they went directly to her attacking Sam, from, let's see, uh, from earlier. But I get what they're talking about specifically when they say that it's repetitive. But I wouldn't say that it doesn't do the exact same thing more than once. Like let's hypothetically say that several places in the house, there would be a hole and bugs would come through. I mean, at the end of the day, bugs. The bugs are really, are there? Do they appear in more than the two scenes when she's in the kitchen and then the car? I think are the only two times that there are bugs. Maybe in the basement in one of those scenes. I'm not entirely sure, but you know, it could easily be actually repetitive. In the nightmare where she sees a police report, there's the subtle detail that the boy was celebrating his birthday. Again, linking the Babadook and the grief, since Sam's birthday is the day Oscar died. We can be together. I just need you to bring me the boy. Some part of her mind genuinely feels as though the reason Oscar is dead is that Samuel was born. And, that her pain would end if Samuel didn't exist. It isn't real. Unfortunately, nobody told the Babadook that. After this point, it really is as though she's possessed by the Babadook. Absolutely devastating sound design on the whole movie, really, but especially like the Babadook and snapping the dog's neck. I realize that the dog dying in a horror movie is really cliche, but I haven't watched that many horror movies where one of the protagonists is the one to kill the dog. Amelia could make a great dentist. What she currently lacks in patience and you know thorough use of painkillers, she more than makes up for in sheer determination. Man, that looked painful. Just pulls out this big sharp tooth, and again, it's a great, like, she is slowly becoming the Babadook. Let me in, you little S word. Now, that kind of attitude isn't going to make you any friends here, young lady. Like I said, I love this movie. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It's hard for me to not make jokes, even about stuff I love. And Sam fights Amelia as the Babadook using the weapons that we've seen him with earlier: firecracker, catapult, dart gun. To me, some of the scariest stuff is when, once Amelia starts being abusive, how she can at times be very sweet, because it just feels wrong. It feels phony, and you wait for the next time she's going to be abusive, and in part that's speaking as the son of an abusive mother. At times she could be incredibly sweet and loving, but it's just, well, in a few seconds, she's going to hit me again. Let's see. There's some Home Alone going on with the ending, especially in the basement, but I don't think that's a bad thing. How else is a 6-year-old going to take down a grown woman? And if he didn't, then what would stop her from attacking him? And even with all that, while tied down, she still grabs him, and briefly it genuinely seems as though the book might come true. She snapped the dog's neck. Now she's strangling the child. I really, they did a great job on that. And like, the time you actually see the later pages in the book is actually pretty early in the, like, it's maybe around the halfway point of the movie or so. So really, from that point on, you're worrying that she's going to do these things, increasingly as time passes. But yeah, like, and I appreciate that it straight up, he did need to tie her down. He needed to knock her out and tie her down in order to make it possible for him, ultimately, he doesn't save her with violence, he saves her with love. But she would be much too dangerous to approach if, yeah. The actress who plays Amelia, I'm sorry, brain melting, Essa something, I'm sorry, I don't know her from anything else, is incredibly scary when she's supposed to be, and convincingly sweet and giving when she's supposed to be. It's an incredible performance. Honestly, I would watch her in just about anything from now on. The yeah. If you touch my that's right. Sorry, yeah. There's three swears in the movie. If you touch my son again, I will fucking kill you. I believe that's what they call a mama bear. There at the end, Sam is still speaking his mind, but now Amelia isn't yelling at him over it, instead pointing out how much like his father he is. And she doesn't tell him to stop using the dart gun, but praises him for his accuracy now that he's only using it on a dartboard. Some of his behavior was unacceptable, but that doesn't mean that those aspects of him have to change completely. Amelia does love him, and now that she's done a better job at processing the grief, she's better able to take care of him. Let's see. And I like there's the thing about, you can't get rid of the Babadook. And at the end of the day, yeah, you can't get rid of grief. That's not a thing. You know, in this kind of thing, I like to use really concrete examples. If you're extreme, if you're very very thirsty and you drink enough, the thirst is gone. At least until the next time you get thirsty. If like if you cover every window, you can make it dark in a room, but you can't get rid of grief. Not completely. It might change form and it might become manageable, but it's never completely gone. And I really appreciate that, and them feeding it worms there at the end is really nasty, but yeah, yeah. For Samuel, that's a pretty good magic trick, but for the movie, I'm pretty sure they just replaced the lids while the camera was not on them. I mean, I don't expect a 7-year-old to be able to pull off that magic trick. I've seen adult magicians do it, but being able to do it, and that's again where like the movie, it's an Australian movie. It has it's like there's no 7-year-old who can do that. That's just, but and not very many mothers are going to be happy to let their 7-year-old play with a dart gun, even if all he does shoot is a dartboard. But yeah. And at the end, she welcomes his hug instead of pushing him away like she did earlier in the movie. I really appreciate that the movie doesn't end on a scare from the Babadook, but giving proper closure. We can imagine that from now on, Amelia and Sam will have a much happier life together. And at the same time, the end credits are over the art from the book, and it is like it's still this dark and kind of scary thing, but it is, yeah. I really love this movie, I gotta say. So yeah, I think it's like 90 minutes. I forgot to note exact, but yeah, I believe it's 90 minutes without end credits and 93 and a half with end credits. And that brings us to the second section. Notes taken before watching. I am completely unfamiliar with the rest of the work, any other work by the people involved. But like I said, I'm definitely going to be watching The Nightingale, and like now that I'm more aware of Jennifer Kent, like if she puts another movie in theaters, I would probably watch it in theaters, but yeah. So let's see the yeah. So where I come from on this movie, I don't know what it's like being a single parent or a parent at all. I haven't even been mistaken for a father. Like I never even been an apparent parent. And but yeah, my mother was definitely not ready for, you know, I don't know what's the word, high maintenance. I acknowledge that I was high maintenance, but she was definitely not ready. Now, let's see. While you're watching a movie, you think that the Babadook is real, but then by the end of it, you realize, we're seeing it from the perspective of a mother and child, and if we weren't, we'd see nothing. Just air there. I'm not going to call anyone stupid for not liking the movie or say that they didn't get it. I do think that if you're still deciding whether or not to watch the movie, before you look at what people rated it, read some of the negative reviews, and you'll see that some of them simply expected it to be a very different movie because horror is such a diverse genre. I mean, there are critical reviews of the movie that aren't real, and most of these are user reviews. The professional critics pretty universally love it. As far as I've seen, I don't read all the individual ones, but I looked on Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes. I think Rotten Tomatoes had like 3 out of a couple hundred, and Metacritic didn't have any negative ones at all. Excuse me. There are critical user reviews of the movie that aren't really describing it as a bad movie. Like what they say doesn't make a bad movie. They're just describing what the movie is like and then saying that's bad. Like I said, saying, oh, it's depressing, the kid is annoying, you know, the yeah, these various things. To them that means it's a bad movie. Now, I maybe this movie would have been better received by audiences if it had jump scares. Personally, I'm very glad it doesn't have jump scares. Rather than me talking a lot about jump scares, I recommend the video by the channel Scaredy Cats, which I, I forget, I don't remember the entire title, but the word jump scare is in the title. At least a few of the negative reviews are by people who wanted things to be more spelled out and people who wanted the Babadook to be a more traditional horror movie monster, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees kind of thing, where there are clear rules for what they can and can't do, and clear motivation for doing it, when the Babadook is actually in the mother's head, not real. There's. I agree. By the end of the movie, it's still not entirely clear what the Babadook can and can't do, and I'm not sure there's any time in the movie where you really get a sense of like motivation, the motive of the Babadook. But that is, if the Babadook was a real creature, then, like, I mean, I could understand if if the source of tension wasn't explained, but that's not the same thing. The source of tension is explained. She looks at her son every day and thinks about how much she misses her dead husband. That's where all the pain comes from, and because the pain has is so strong and has been ignored for so long, the pain is turning into violent anger. It's not that it's not explained, and honestly, I think, like, if you watch this movie and you just take the Babadook as of a monster that actually is, you know, maybe it makes it even scarier that you don't even know. But I watched a lot of videos that I could find that looked interesting about this movie before recording this video. One that I almost started watching but then immediately decided against was, I think it was called how do you defeat the Babadook, or you versus the Babadook, how to win, or something like that. And it's just like, I don't know, you know what, maybe the video, maybe it was made by people who get it, and they're just pretending, and they're like, are you kidding? Obviously, it's not, it's not, like, it's fine if you want to make that about Jason Voorhees, because for that it makes perfect sense. But this is not that kind of movie. Anyway. Let's see. Yeah, and there's also some people who insist that a good horror movie must have likable and relatable characters. Obviously that is one perspective on the matter. I don't I don't think that every movie shouldn't have it, but I don't think that every horror movie should have it either. I just think it's the wrong way to look at this movie. Now, a number of people have compared it to The Shining, and I'm not sure I really have anything to add. I mean, yeah, The Shining, it's alcoholism, and the Babadook gets grief. So it definitely is, and in The Shining, there's two parents, and it's the father who goes, who loses it instead of the mother. But other than that, yeah, there's definitely a lot of similarities. And that's, again, like, I don't know if last time I watched The Shining, I loved it, but that was years ago. I'm not gonna speak to it now. I can imagine I might still love it, but that doesn't, I can love both movies. I don't feel like this is like a ripoff of it, because they're saying different things. The I read a really great essay a few years back that talked about The Shining and really all of Kubrick's movies, and talked about that Kubrick's movies are about men failing failing to live up to the expected. They're not, yeah, what society expects men to be able to do, and that's, yeah, and The Shining is one example of that. And yeah, I would say so. The part of The Shining is that Jack just feels inadequate, and ultimately, he blames that on his family, and thus the violence, starts using violence against them rather than like recruiting them or something. And in this, it's not about feeling inadequate. It's about the grief. The I mean, for a lot of time, she really hasn't been inadequate. She needed to get better at setting boundaries. But other than that, yeah, it is. She does a really great job taking care of her kid, you know, taking care of the neighbor, taking care of her sister's, needs for. She always listens to her sister talking about the problems and all these. Yeah. Excuse me. Some people say that the movie is tedious and slow. I mean, I guess slow in the sense that it takes a while before something really big happens, maybe. Although even that, I'm not sure I agree with. I don't know. Again, it seems like sure, if you expect, like, let's see, what would be an example of some, if you expect it to be a, you know, for sure, horror movies in more recent years can move very, very fast, and thus, yeah, I can imagine there's a certain expectation that a lot will happen, and that, but yeah, I don't know. Like I already said, it moves very fast. It fits in a lot of stuff. I'm sorry, but I found the following amusing. At least one person, yeah, the reveal of the father dying in the car crash, at least one person thought it came way too late in the film. And at least one said it came way too early in the film. And I can understand the person who said it came too early. I guess I can kind of understand their perspective. I just don't think that. I think it's a good thing for the audience to know that before, very long into the movie. And I guess the other person just missed the early mention of it, or thought that it was because the kid says it real early in the movie. It's maybe 10 minutes into the movie that he says it to a stranger at the grocery store. I guess he thought that. Well, it's I don't know. Is that maybe a really good example of just not listening to children, just like automatically what? Because the kid also says that there's a monster under the bed, so nothing he says is true. Yeah, I kind of already mentioned, but it's kind of funny when you read reviews of this and people make sure to mention the kid's real annoying. I mean, that's kind of part of the point. I saw at least one reviewer say that the idea of a mother looking at her child and only seeing her dead spouse, that there was something wrong with that. I think they might have said that that was an offensive idea. I think it's perfectly fine to debate whether something like that crosses a line. Personally, I don't think it does, and I'll get a little bit more into it, but personally, yeah, just real quick, I think it's important to note, as far as I recall, that reviewer described themselves as a fan of horror movies. To me, it seems kind of ridiculous to criticize a horror movie for making a provocative statement. I mean, if a horror movie doesn't make a provocative statement, doesn't that mean that it failed as a horror movie? I will grant that a number of horror movies make the same provocative statement as each other, but I think it's pretty fundamental to a horror movie that it should make at least one provocative statement. Not necessarily say you must believe this or you're wrong, but say, here's an idea. Not necessarily saying for sure what to think of it, but just think about this, debate it, and like, yeah, horror movies are supposed to put ideas in your head that you then, that's part of the point of a horror movie. Like, I mean, if you just want to get, excuse me, that's why you watch a horror movie. If you just want to get scared but don't want to put an idea in there, I don't know. Let's see. I should have thought of the punchline before I started telling a joke. Let's see. Yeah, okay, this isn't a joke, but gamble. That can be exciting. It's Please don't gamble with money you can't afford to lose. So I don't think that you're and don't gamble with other people's money unless you're going to give them the money back afterwards. Let's see. Yeah, I personally think we need more female perspectives in horror. These are the kinds of deeply compelling ideas that we need to keep the genre fresh. And I can't help but wonder if this same reviewer has similar problems with all the other movies that have children be hated by adults, including their own parents. I guess maybe the reviewer wouldn't make the counterpoint that in a lot of movies the children are objectively speaking evil, when in this movie it seems like the true evil is the grief. But as I talked about in my recent video on Don't Look Now, grief really changes who you are, sometimes permanently, and it can really destroy who you are. I do completely understand thinking that some movies go too far with provocative statements, but ultimately this movie does say it's wrong for the child to suffer due to the mother's grief, without saying that the mother isn't allowed to feel grief. The movie is acknowledging the fact that some parents look at the child and feel pain due to the other parent of the child. This can also be the case when the parents get a divorce. I know people who grew up, you know, one of my friends for years never met his father, and it became pretty clear to me that the reason that his mother treated him so badly was that she saw his father in, you know, in his face, in his behavior, and it ended up causing both of them a lot of pain. And if we don't acknowledge that, how are we ever going to be able to solve it? You know, personally, I have a bigger problem with movies that say that some children are just evil, and some of these movies even say that these children should be killed, which does, of course, bring up the issue when it is and isn't okay to imply in a movie that certain people should be killed. I do have a bigger problem with when the person targeted is a child, because as disgusting as it is to think about, to some people, killing a child isn't that difficult. Obviously, not every single adult can defend themselves or at least flee, but a lot of children are very trusting of adults and are thus easier targets, and a lot of adults get away with doing things to children that are completely unethical. Now, let's see. So, let's see. Right, so yeah, I watched a lot of YouTube videos about this movie. The There's the 11-minute short movie called Monster, also by Jennifer Kent. It's 8 minutes long without end credits. Very well done. I don't have a lot to say. You know, it's basically the prototype for this movie, and you know, if you watched this movie but haven't watched that short, it's still worth watching. Now, and Wisecrack did a really great video called "Why Motherhood is So Terrifying in Horror," and it's, yeah, there's a lot of videos on it, and you know, the vast majority of the videos are quite good. Let's, yeah, someone bought the Babadook pop-up book and then like did narration as they flip through the pages. Excellent video. If you haven't watched that and you really love the book and the movie, just yeah. And that brings us to the final section. Critics, sites, IMDb, and Wikipedia. Ah, my neck. Yeah, it has a 98% tomato meter, but only a 72% audience score. 232 fresh ratings and 5 rotten ones. And on IMDb it has like, most people only gave it a 7, which is just I don't understand how you, yeah. Well, excuse me. I guess it's the expectations thing. So I am gonna, holy crap. Okay. I'm gonna skim. I marked some stuff as stuff I want to get into. I'm gonna skim that, and then I'm gonna end the video and drink something so cold. Just the coldest, the absolute coldest. So cold that it's just that it's almost still frozen. That it's barely thawed. Thawed. There we go. One of those two. You have the words, you make them a sentence. Yeah, one critic says, is to parenting what The Shining is to alcoholism? And The Babadook is impressive for its focused script acting as a giant metaphor about either letting our demons take over our lives or learning to keep them at bay, no matter how scary it may seem. I really love that we never get a completely good look of at the Babadook. Like, at the end of the day, you still don't know exactly what he looks like. And Kent knows what she's doing. Possessed parents, sinister children, and haunted homes. This is the stuff sleepless nights are made of. See, that's the thing. Like, in addition to being this great metaphor, it is legitimately scary. Like, and this is her directorial debut. Like, it is unreal how strong of a debut this is. Like, it is legitimately, like, I don't, yeah, it's really, really incredible. And yeah, I mean, Jennifer Kent is now, to me, up there with, should have written this down, the director of Monster and both Wonder Woman movies. I'm afraid right now I have trouble remembering her name. As you know, maybe my two favorite female directors, and both provided such strong directorial debuts. Yeah, jagged thrusts of dark humor pepper the scary stuff and will appeal to any less than perfect mother who has lost it in the heat of the moment. I mean, it really is like the expectations that we put on parents in general, but mothers, like the it really is. But at the same time, it's a difficult thing because it is also, we do know that it's harmful to the child if if the parents aren't, you have to be extremely stable and yeah, so it, and again, I really like, think of how easy it would be to make this movie about how rotten this one kid is, and make parents who sometimes resent their children feel like, oh, it's not. But no, at the end of the day, it is, yeah, Sam is difficult, but you know, she's his mother. Of course she's gonna protect him, and the yeah. Nestled deep within this teeny Australian thriller packs a simple yet profound message about what it often feels like to be a single parent, and even what it feels like to be the child of that parent. It's become increasingly rare for horror films to make an effort to truly scare us these days, but Jennifer Kent's The Babadook gets under the skin in ways that are both visceral and highly emotional. I'm sorry, I think I'm gonna start going through this faster. Okay, so let's see. There are legitimate terrors here, legitimate because, as any bleary-eyed parent will verify, they come from a real and terrible place. What's most terrifying about The Babadook is that Kent grounds a bizarre supernatural premise in very real feelings of anxiety and depression. I can't think of a movie since Rosemary's Baby which acknowledges the unspoken fears of motherhood with such humor, horror, and compassion. I'd have to agree. It's right up close. Like I very recently rewatched that movie, and it just I will never tire of that movie. And this, yeah. Excuse me. It's amazing what Kent manages to squeeze out of some of the most worn horror tropes in the book. In this case, the literal book. For all its otherworldly flourishes, it confirms that the most terrifying monsters are remarkably local. Domestic, even. It would be easy to call this a thinking person's horror film, but then that would be to deny its many deliciously visceral moments of flesh-crawling terror. The style of the film is not teasing exactly, it's too sad and lonely, but there is certainly a hair-pulling mixture of glum laughter and vast apprehension. Is the demon real? Does it matter? A deftly inventive and psychologically charged horror story that trades on the ways in which the prospect of maternal failure can be just as fearsome a boogeyman as any monster under the bed. The film is also about institutions that fail to serve. And some people also compare it to Repulsion. That's definitely, yeah, very much so. And that again, part of why that works so well is what is what is this individual supposed to do? If you don't feel safe in your own home, you know, what are you supposed to do then? The Babadook descends to the truly horrific when you begin to see it as the literary manifestation of an insomniac's murder fantasy. Now, back. Okay. Few male directors could have conveyed Amelia's wretched state without making her seem hideous, or shown Sam's deep anger without making him unlikable. Kent has done both, and left us to decide exactly what we think about this troubled relationship. Exactly. Beautifully, yeah. Very well put, and beautifully handled by Kent. It's incredible. About halfway through, I grabbed my notes and moved to the back row of the theater because the empty seats behind me were creeping me out. By the end of the movie, I was wishing I could turn the lights on. Minor masterpiece of the macabre. Be afraid, be very afraid. The Babadook is more than a down-under Freddy Krueger. Reminds us that the real monsters under the bed are mommy and daddy. This movie is the glass in the soup, the big bad wolf under the bed. What makes the Babadook great is the depth in which it sinks its fangs into human emotion, particularly the way we grieve. Keeping the pain bottled up can literally kill you, but facing it and learning to tame it, live with it, can be liberating. No one likes to think there are limits to a parent's love, especially a mother's. Tricky but fertile territory for horror, explored here by first-time writer-director Jennifer Kent. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. When the At one point in the movie, when Amelia is lying in the bed, you hear like, let me think. No, I think, yeah. First you hear the thing, and she like sits up in bed and looks at the door, and like the handle, what's it called, of moves, and then the door slowly gets pushed open. That was so unbelievably creepy and scary. It's just, I don't know what you are on if you don't think that this is a horror movie, if you think that it's just a drama. Let a law be passed requiring all horror films to be made by female directors. I wouldn't say it. I don't think it has to be all of them, but like two-thirds of them. Let's see. Right, and others have also said, it has some of this David Lynch kind of thing brilliantly used, and yeah. Let's see. The vast majority, however, follow the baby in peril route, most recently seen in the generic demon doll picture, Annabelle. It's surprisingly rare for a film to tap into the genuinely scary things about parenting, and yeah. I mean, that is one of the things about this movie is there are times when the thing you're actually afraid of is, has Amelia lost control of Sam? Sam is Sam gonna like grow up to be a serial killer or something? Because some of these things are really scary, And again, I am so I'm so happy that the movie doesn't end up saying, "Oh, he's just evil and you gotta kill him because it's the only way." I really, really hate. I I think it is arguably irresponsible to put forth the idea. At the very least, I think you have to be extremely careful about how you do it. Because there are so many people who see evil everywhere and who think that violence is, you know, acceptable to solve, yeah. Let's see. an atmospheric psychological thriller which unfolds like a postnatally depressed repulsion. Its horrors go beyond any single raggedy phantom, reaching back to the primordial fear of death and loss, of a child, of a loved one, of one's own sense of self. Who thinks up a film like The Babadook? Actress turned debuting feature director Jennifer Kent has the narrative chutzpah to show her entire hand in the pop-up story and then make us squirm as foretold events come true. The Babadook feels just like that actual nightmare you once had. The Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm gonna get to the user review I just landed on. I'm just real quick gonna let's see. So the okay, let me think. When the when she suddenly finds glass in the soup, I mean that must have been that she actually, like, when she was making the soup, like, briefly without realizing it, the negative, the harmful thoughts took over, and she broke some glass into, that wouldn't have been difficult. Yeah, broke some glass and put the pieces into the or I guess it's possible that I don't think that Sam ever sees the bugs. He reacts to her, telling him that there are bugs. You know, I don't think he ever sees the bugs, and it's possible that the glass was also just in her head. Okay, I'm just real quick gonna. This is a user review on Rotten Tomatoes. Sorry, right? All the reviews I just quoted from were Rotten Tomatoes critic reviews. Okay, I'm just briefly gonna say I'm not gonna read this entire review, but he says they say it didn't have any real message. It's just, again, like, I really don't think you should be saying something like that if you're not 100% sure. Or maybe they are sure, but I would say you're absolutely 100% wrong that there isn't one. The message is that you have to deal with, if you don't take care of your grief is going to take care of you, you know. And that's one of the most important messages. Like, I've been trying to grieve over my mother since I was 12 when she died, and I've encountered a huge chunk of people who would literally see me grieve and say that it was wrong of me. And I mean, we're not talking about, it's not like I was doing something that would harm me or anyone else. I was just trying to process it. And in response, I would get bullied by my peers, punished by, back when I was a child and other people had power over me, which is just, honestly, at some point in the future, we're going to perfect cloning, and childhood is going to be a thing of the past because nobody deserves to have to be a child and have awful people have power over them and then not be listened to when you tell supposedly not awful people who supposedly have some power also that other people are awful to you. I think people who are awful to children should be punished about as much as you can punish anyone. It's about the most horribly wrong thing you can do. And punishing someone for grieving over their dead parent I gotta think that gets you a special spot in hell. And yeah, and one of these people was a principal, a school principal. Complete and utter sociopath. I really hope. I'm kind of scared to research it, but I hope that he's at least not working with children anymore. Let's see. Now, I think. Is that about? Let's see. Yeah, here. This is a Metacritic user review. I think the movie. This person gave it a 10 out of 10. I think the movie portrays schizophrenia spot on. Only someone that lived with someone with schizophrenia could have written and directed a movie like that. So I assume this is biographical and has to do with something Kent lived, and it's an artistic way of expressing it. The desperation of trying to keep the monster at bay is impressively portrayed. I mean, this person gave it a 3 out of 10, and they do at least give they at least have the wherewithal to end their review with the words, "I'm not saying it's a bad film. I'm giving the reasons why I hated it." Because yeah, one of yeah, they they found Amelia to be a despicable mother, which I mean, at times, yeah. But if that's the one word you have to say about her, and it is here. It really, we have way too little respect and patience for mothers today. It's insane how clearly she is trying in this movie. Like there are movies that where you could point to a character and say, okay, they're a terrible mother. They're just a, you know, or maybe this person is so used to movies like that, so they can't tell the difference between a mother who's at times anyway. But yeah, some of I'm gonna quote some of the mood. Everything is dark gray. The mood is depression and sadness from start to finish. Yeah, that's the point. That's part of the point. Let's okay. Yeah, there's a reviewer here who, yeah, I'm just gonna quote, "It'd be nice if the movie didn't have a masturbation scene." Why? It's an absolutely perfectly. She's very sexually repressed, and the one time in the movie where we see her try to get some relief, the kid shows up, and I think it's absolutely perfectly handled. I would have a problem with it if there was like male gaze going on, because that would be completely wrong. But there's not. It's focused on her need and her pleasure, and yeah, the fact that she just, yeah. Let's see. As a child of a one-parent home, some things were uncomfortably familiar, and the resolution seemed on par with reality. And this person gave an 8 out of 10. I'm sorry, this is a little amusing. And this person gave it an 8 out of 10, so they did really like the movie. The Babadook becomes the representation of that pain and struggle that she has to face in order to protect her son, but not the dog. That's kind of amusing, yeah. Holy crap. Yeah, and that brings us to IMDb, and yeah, I'm just gonna read the 4 taglines. If it's in a word or it's in a look, you can't get rid of the Babadook. Don't let it in. You can't get rid of the Babadook. Where there is imagination, there is darkness, and from within that darkness lurks a being of unfathomable terror, close to home. Let's Now, let's see. I'm just briefly gonna. The parent's guide identifies the car crash. It says she crashes her car while suffering a panic attack. I mean that is, yeah, that is a pretty good way to put that. Right, and I'm glad I'm just skimming the parent's guide. I thought the bit with the where she she's basically uh, she's asleep but she feels like she's and she looks over to see if Sam is okay on his chair, and there's like blood all over him, and she's like, oh no, I think maybe she screams. I don't remember exactly, and then we see and then we see him and he's like, mommy, and then we see that she's holding this knife, so which again, in her mind it is this like she she's having trouble pushing the thought away, so it's going between so I mean I guess she was sleepwalking basically. Yeah, in her hands, in her head, there's blood on him already, and then suddenly she comes to and it's like, holy crap, but she still got the knife that she picked up from sleeping while sleepwalking. I mean, I guess if you really twist my arm and try to get some criticism out of me, I guess when we see Oscar's head be like cut in half, that did look a little fake. I guess it didn't feel completely real, but yeah, I have almost nothing negative to say. It's, yeah, I guess that is a matter of perspective. Under alcohol, drugs, and smoking, 47 out of 54 found this to have none, but someone else added, a mother gives her child a sedative. I think that is probably like to parents watching that scene, it's like, oh, don't, no, that's wrong. But a lot of people who don't yet have children, they watch it and like, that's not a big deal. But yeah, like the okay, let's see. Oh, and I think I saw at least one review where they point out that apparently some of the noises, or yeah, the one or more of the noises that the Babadook makes is taken from some famous, like a video game or horror movie or something. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I can kind of see what they mean. And they were like, should have, she should have, they should have recorded new ones. And I maybe it's just I haven't played those games or watched those movies much. I didn't realize it while watching, but let's see. Definite trigger warnings for anyone who had a violent or abusive relationship with parents, especially those who were threatened or assaulted by a parent. Now, okay, now let's see. That brings us. Okay, almost done. Okay, so yeah, I honestly this bit of IMDb trivia really I have so much respect for Jennifer Kent. Director Jennifer Kent was extremely sensitive about introducing themes of the film to child actor Noah Wiseman. During the 3 weeks of pre-production, she carefully gave him a child-friendly version of what the story was about. Wiseman's mother was on set throughout filming, and Wiseman himself was never actually present on set during scenes in which Essie Davis's character abuses her son. Davis instead delivered her lines to an adult actor who stood on his knees. Kent is quoted as saying, "I didn't want to destroy a childhood to make this film." That's I that I have so much respect for that. Yeah, and to get the reaction shots of Wiseman looking terrified, Davies said things like, "I'm going to take your Legos and throw it into the river," which is kind of adorable because yeah, that like a 7-year-old would be terrified at hearing that, but it's not going to traumatize him. You know, it's gonna get a reaction shot, but it's not like it's not like yeah. I really respect and Stanley Kubrick did the same thing for The Shining. You know, the I was about to sorry, my brain is so fried I almost spoiled that movie. But no, the only thing you know from what I just said is that in that movie there's something that hypothetically the child actor could have seen that would have been scary, but in reality Stanley Kubrick was very careful about not filming that. And I think I read once what it was that he did say to get the kid to look scared, but I don't remember right now. I don't think it was as epic as "I am going to take your Legos and throw it into the river," though. But yeah, I think you shouldn't a child shouldn't get traumatized just to make a movie. It's an incredibly important message to convey, but if you can't convey it without traumatizing a child actor, then do it as like a book or maybe an audio play or something with an adult actor doing the child's voice or something. But I'm really glad that it is a movie because it has a really strong impact. And yeah, it really, yeah. Also, this film marked a rare achievement for characters in a horror movie. Everyone alive at the beginning of the film stays alive at the end, excluding the dog. And that's true. Technically, Oscar, sorry, I gotta think about how to phrase this. By the end of the movie, Oscar is dead, but he was dead before the start of the movie too. There at the start of the movie, we see the recurring nightmare she has of him dying. It's not that we're seeing him die for the first time. So yeah, everyone alive at the beginning of the film stays alive at the end, and that is really. And I think that might have also bothered some people. Some people are like, then it's not a horror movie. Someone has to die. Now, let's see. Yeah, if you're curious, the different. I'm sorry, 1 second. The different some of the sound effects used can be seen in the trivia section, and there might also be in the what's it called, like the connections section, but I forget. Right, and yeah, when the at the bingo game, she says that it says 11, but when it cuts and then the ball doesn't say 11 but 69, which and as it says here, which may be a playful joke with the crew and cast. Let's see. Now, I'm just going to skim through the quote section. one of the things that especially got to me was the when Amelia is all sweet and saying, I just spoke with Mrs. Roach. We're going to stay there tonight. You want that? I want to make it up for you, Sam. And this whole, and it's just, you could just tell it's wrong. And then she straight up says, I want you to meet your dad. It's beautiful there. You'll be happy. Like she is basically, I mean, she might as well say, you're gonna go to a farm, yeah. And this is also a great quote. I'm Prue, and this is Warren. How are you? I'm a bit tired from the drugs Mom gave me. Oh, God. Also, yeah, real quick, the part near the end when when he says, "I just wanted you to be happy," and and she says these, yeah, man, reading these things again, really, really glad that you know that he didn't hear those things be said when I don't know exactly how they're. I mean, well, let me think. The movie is 6 years old, so I guess he's 13 by now. Honestly, I wouldn't show it to him until he's like 17, maybe. But the yeah, the let's see. Yeah, she makes a very. I'm not going to read this out loud, but she makes a very. I'm not saying it's bad that it's in the movie. It's great that it's in the movie, and she threatens him, and then he says, "You're not my mother," and even says it twice when you know, yeah. It's yeah. I'm just real quick. The let's see. Yeah, the this is from the birthday party when the Amelia is they bring up the thing about having lost the yeah the, I do volunteer work with some disadvantaged women, and a few of them have lost their husbands and they find it very hard. And yeah, I hadn't really thought about it, but as it points out here in the quotes page, it's basically they bring that up, and then they veer off into this champagne problem, talking about, oh, I don't even have time to go to the gym anymore, and the and actually, yeah, thinking about it, it's possible that she wouldn't have been so snarky with them if they hadn't brought up that she lost her husband. But yeah, I don't even have time to go to the gym anymore. It's ridiculous. Amelia, loud, sarcastic, and hostile. That's a real tragedy. Not having time to go to the gym anymore? How do you cope? You must have so much to talk about with those poor disadvantaged women. Yeah, it really is. Now, let's see. So, huh. I did not. I forgot about this, but yeah, there's a movie called Nine from 2019, so last year, and it says here the film takes. Sorry, I guess that's a spoiler. But anyway, it's yeah, not gonna go into. But it says that it's a remake of this. I might look into that movie as well. And let's see. Huh. The This says that it references that the movie references the original Blackadder because the witch smeller. It's been a while since I watched it, and I don't even know if they're saying it right on the show. So I'm gonna try. Poursuivant is troubled by a spirit called Grumbledook. I don't know. I'm not sure I would say that's quite the now. But yeah, the Jennifer Kent calls her short film the 2005 short film Monster Baby Babadook. And okay, so I am almost through the list as there we go. Okay. Oh right, real quick, gonna see soundtrack. Skippy. I wonder how many people learned about the existence of. Let me think. It's called Skippy the Bush Kangaroo, apparently, which is apparently like Australian Lassie from watching this movie. I already knew about it, but not because of anything. Just, Tank Girl Review by Obscurus Lupa. Or Movie Nights, I think she goes by now. She mentions it there. But yeah, the moment that they were on, they were watching TV. I know the movie is set and made in Australia, and there's a, there's a little kangaroo and there's a kid there. I was like, that's Skippy, isn't it? And then the kid starts calling it Skippy, and talking in a very Timmy and Lassie kind of way. Right, sorry. I'm just briefly gonna skim the plot synopsis on Wikipedia to see if there's something in there that I did not. Let's see. Now, let's see. Right. When she finds the taped up book, New Words taught her by saying that the Babadook will become stronger if she continues to deny its existence. And that, yeah, that's grief. That's a great metaphor for grief. And I think one of the really, yeah, yeah, one of the things that makes this movie work so well is that the kinds of things that would make people fear the dark are the like, obviously, yeah, there are some cases where people have actually, you know, they like, they thought they saw something, or maybe they were attacked by, you know, let's be honest, it's usually, I don't believe in any supernatural, but the things that really make us fear, it is these primal kinds of things. Not all fear is due to grief, but all intense fear is due to intense feelings. It's There's no such thing as a real ghost, but and that's the thing. It's frustrating sometimes when it's especially because there are movies about ghosts that go into that. The reason we think about ghosts at all is because we have trouble coping with the. It's one thing that there are, when you may not realize it when you're a child, but when you get a little older, eventually you realize that before you were ever alive, other people were alive and they are now dead. That's one thing. Some people are very bothered by that, but not everybody. But if someone who is alive in your life, and this is something that's going to happen to every, grief is extremely important to understand because everyone is at some point in their life, like, unless you die at a really, really young age, you're almost definitely going to experience the death of someone close to you. And that's the thing that just like, there's something about our brain that just can't quite, they used to be alive and now they're not. They're just not. They're never going to come back. I've seen them every year for 20 years, and now they're just never coming back. That makes no sense. We can't process it. It's extremely difficult to process it, and it's frustrating when such a great movie about grief comes along, and some people just say, oh, it's not scary, and the characters are annoying. Just, yeah. Let me think. I feel like there was one more thing I wanted to say about that. But yeah, grief, hatred, really strong, intense anger. These are the kinds of things that actually lead to fear. Like, if you fall asleep and you're having trouble not thinking about, like, people you hate or strong anger you feel towards someone, that can lead to nightmares, and nightmares, excuse me, at the end of the day, nightmares are the actual explanation is basically like, okay, it's been some years since I read this. I don't know if this is still, but last I read, basically the human brain trying to process the events of the day, or not. I'm sorry, not just of the day, but in general, processing things. And some people, look at nightmares and think it must be a sign of something great. It's not. It's super not. It's a sign that there are things in your head that haven't been fully processed. It's not a sign that there's actually some evil spirit out there that's trying to get you. And the reason that you feel a presence is because you miss the person who lived there, or you get a sense of the person who lived there if it's someone you didn't know. Anyway, yeah, this is a really great explanation. This is, again, Wikipedia plot summary. Amelia starts to become more isolated and shut-in, being more impatient, shouting at Samuel for disobeying her constantly, and having frequent visions of the Babadook once again. Her mental state slowly decays and she exhibits erratic and violent behavior. including cutting the phone line with a knife and then waving the same knife, aggressively at Sam without realizing it. This devolves into disturbing hallucinations where Amelia violently murders Sam. Now, let's see. After this ordeal, Amelia and Sam manage to recover. Amelia is attentive and caring towards him, encouraging him to work the weapons he makes and being impressed at Sam's magic tricks. Let's see. Yeah. And yeah, at the start of the movie, she won't even look. He says nothing in my hands, nothing in my hands. And and she's not looking, and then he says, "Mom, it doesn't work if you don't look." It's and it is like and again, I have a lot of empathy for her, but at the time, she's not being very attentive, and I mean, is she maybe getting him ready for school or something? She's like, she is busy. It's not like just. And anyway, yeah, she the let's see. But yeah, it's a great contrast between the start and the end. He's got the weapons and he does the magic tricks in both, but at the start she's concerned about the weapons and inattentive when it comes to the magic, and at the end yeah, she's proud in. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, Kent eventually lost her passion for acting by the end of the 1990s after 2 decades. Yeah, but yeah, I hope she doesn't miss it because I'm really glad she's directing. But yeah, in regard to parenting, Kent further explained October 2014. Now, I'm not saying we all want to go and kill our kids, but a lot of women struggle. And it is a very taboo subject to say that motherhood is anything but a perfect experience for women. Very true. In terms of the characters, Kent said it is important that both characters are loving and lovable so that we, the audience, really feel for them. Kent wanted to portray human relationships in a positive light. Yeah, I mean, this movie so easily could have ended up with the movie and the audience hating Amelia and or Sam, brain melting, and it really I find it incredibly impressive that it manages to be consistent in the characterization, and yet early in the movie we are kind of afraid of Sam and what he might turn into, and at the end of the movie we're afraid of Amelia and what she has turned into, at least temporarily, and yet at other times we do really like, yeah, when they are good together, they're great together. You know, they're at the end. Like it really is. Like he fires the dart gun, and I mean he got it real close to the bullseye, and she's like, great shot. Just yeah, man. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Here's a list of her inspirations and influences. The Thing, Halloween, The Shining, and Let the Right One In. And there are a few others, but those are the ones I've watched. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, incredible movies. So yeah, yeah. I mean, Halloween, the whole thing with we don't see too much of the and the yeah. Now let's see. I wanted to create a myth in a domestic setting, and even though it happened to be in some strange suburb in Australia somewhere, it could have been anywhere. I guess part of that is creating a world that wasn't particularly Australian. I'm very happy actually that it doesn't feel particularly Australian. And I agree. It's I mean the some of the like yeah from looking at it you can't tell that it's Australian. Like you can tell that it's Australian by the accents and like I said some of the humor that maybe wouldn't be you know but other than that and yeah like it doesn't feel like it's not yeah let's see. Oh, right. Apparently, yes. Kent's friendship with Davis was a boon during filming, and Kent praised her former classmate in the media. To her credit, she's very receptive, likes to be directed, and is a joy to work with. That is really cool. That like they studied acting together, and then like down the line, one of them is directing the other. And yeah, I gotta say, I don't know, I don't Essie Davis gives an incredible performance, and Jennifer Kent does an incredible job, you know, in general directing. So yeah, they were definitely working in tandem. They both understood how the what the other was doing, how to best make the yeah. Now let's see. Yeah, apparently the monster is done with stop motion effects, and it really is. I think people today don't appreciate the stop motion is. I mean, obviously you have to use it right, today we can like what's the word? Like we know that we can tell that it's not quite the same as naturally moving, but that's not a bad thing. That's like it works incredibly well for the Babadook, the creature specifically. When he's crawling on the ceiling and you hear the noises and he's moving in this like he's not moving smoothly, he's moving in these jagged motions. It's absolutely perfect, and that's again like it's so it feels so not human. Like the Babadook is so clearly not. You you can't really imagine trying to talk him out of attacking you. There's no humanity there. It's like an insect that's shaped like a human, or yeah. Now let's see. Yeah, and there's apparently there's a LGBT meme, and Jennifer Kent said she loved the meme, saying that I think it's crazy, and the meme just kept him alive. I thought, ah, you bastard. He doesn't want to die, so he's finding ways to become relevant. Yeah, the now let's see. Right, and I saw some people say that let's see. Yeah, the let's see. I promise I'm gonna wash. Nobody else is touching. I also don't have any symptoms of corona, but don't worry. Nobody else is touching that before. I'm gonna wash it clean and thoroughly. Don't worry. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, what was the thing? The thing. There was a thing. I'm certain there was a thing. What was it? The thing was. I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out the. That just kind of threw me for a little. It's just the meme kind of. I'm trying to wrap my head around the LGBT. You know what? If it brings them joy, that's great. I would never want to take that away from them. Right. His appearance. I saw some people say, oh, he looks like Edward Scissorhands or something. Well, I mean, he's inspired by the same. Edward Scissorhands and the Babadook, the creature himself, are both inspired by, I want to say, the 20s and 30s German Expressionism. I don't understand. I mean, uh, give me a second. I can come up with some. Uh, Edward Scissorhands has blades for fingers. Freddy Krueger has blades on his fingers. Are you telling me that you can't watch a Freddy Krueger movie without thinking he's gonna, cut somebody's hair or shear what's it called, a bush, or that when you watch Edward Scissorhands that you keep expecting him to throw out a Freddy line. Come on, that's just I really don't feel like that criticism makes any sense at all. Like I guess if it okay, let's hypothetically say that instead of taking, I mean it is an unpleasant, unsettling design. You know, all these sharp edges and so unnaturally black, like the dark. It's yeah, it almost like there's that line in Desperado. It was as if the lights dimmed just for him. That's kind of what the Babadook feels like. It no matter how dark it is, you can still see him, and he looks pitch black even in perfect sunlight. Like when they're in the car, for example, he's still complete. Like it's you would expect him to look lighter, but he's still just yeah the like let's say that they tried to make one of the Teletubbies scary. I could maybe see that, but then I could see how we're always thinking about the not threatening version, but like yeah. Actually, I don't know what Tim Burton thinks of this movie since he is very heavily inspired by German Expressionism. But yeah, and yeah, some people also said or the Danny DeVito. Is that a right, I got an open window. Yeah, it's like a butterfly or something. It's not dangerous. I just sorry. I'm a little sensitive right now to small bugs in a domestic setting. Maybe you can maybe you can grok why, but it's a butterfly or something. It's not some dangerous thing. I don't even know if we have. I'm not sure where I live. We even have dangerous things that fly in through the yeah. Excuse me. Okay, so right, the thing, um, German expressionism, and yeah, and see that's the thing. Like Tim Burton, parts of this movie he could have made, but I don't think I'm not sure the whole grief thing. And I real quick, I guess I should start by the caveat. It's been a while since I've watched one of these. Oh, I rewatched Batman not that long ago, but I think I would probably still love his movie. Off the top of my head, the ones I really, really love. The original Batman, I guess on a right day, Batman Returns. Uh, uh, the sorry, I don't remember the name, but the Demon Barber thing, Demon Barber of Fleet Street. Um, Edward Scissorhands, Mars Attacks. I feel like there's one more, but I can't quite place it. But I really love his work. I'm not sure that he would have done the grief exploring, or at least not as well and Vincent, the short film where Vincent Price, who clearly like he absolutely loved, and it's pretty cool. He got to work with him a couple of times, both for Vincent and for Edward Scissorhands, and it is that's kind of a spoiler for that movie, so I'm not going to say it. But yeah, the excuse me, I let me think. So the thing was that it was the yeah I don't know I and I'm not saying I think he does a great job at the thing he does. I'm glad that I don't think he could have done as good a job at you know at this movie as Jennifer Kent does. And yeah, I holy crap, this movie was incredible. And what's that Malcolm in the Middle quote? I take some solace in knowing what my nightmares are going to contain tonight. And yeah, it's just like I don't know how you can watch this and not find it scary. I don't understand how the idea of either your child or your parent being dangerous to you is not scary. I that does not make sense to me. But I think just a lot of people today. Some years ago, my father noted that when he was younger, there was more culture loved children more than it does today. And yeah, I think there might be some. I mean, this movie clearly was made by someone who I don't know with I don't know for sure if Jennifer Kent has children of her own or how many she has or you know, but for sure she understands that it can be a really positive experience to raise a child, but it can also be a very scary thing. And yeah, I mean, I guess if you don't really think about personally, I find that the you know when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I thought the scariest thing in the world was something that would move fast and be really strong and be very hard to get away from, and that would try to kill. But now I do find much scarier the idea of someone being dangerous who is close to me and someone losing control who is close to me. And yeah, I, yeah. Anyway, you know what? I think if you watch this movie and you have children and you felt and you know you were legitimately scared that your one of your parents might hurt at least one of your parents might hurt you. I for one I think that's then it's more likely that you'll find the movie scary, and for another, if you still didn't find the movie scary, I think you should include that information in your review because I feel like that just matters more. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm not that interested in some. Again, just real quick, I have a ton of empathy for teenagers as well. And in general, if people who aren't really listened to and believed. But if you are a teenager who watched this movie and don't think it's scary because you can't really imagine, you know, you've never really imagined what it's like to have a kid and you've never really been scared of your own parents or something, I just don't think. I mean, maybe the movie wasn't made for you, and maybe that's okay because there's literally a million billion. Okay, there's not a million billion. Hundreds of thousands of billions of movies specifically made, horror movies specifically made for teenagers. So I don't feel like every single horror movie has to be made for them. Yeah, this I'm really glad I watched this movie, and I am definitely watching The Nightingale and anything else Kent, you know, makes. That's yeah. Now let's see. Oh yeah, real quick. Let's see. Yeah, apparently William Friedkin, director of The Exorcist, said that he's never seen a more terrifying film. It will scare the hell out of you as it did me. That's really cool. That yeah. Now I yeah, and apparent prominent British film critic Mark Kermode named The Babadook his favorite film of 2014. So that's really cool. That I believe is everything. This video ended up longer than I thought. I suffered through the heat because I had more to say than I maybe thought that. So that's good. I am gonna go try to fight off the heat with something ice, cold, and liquid. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed watching, as I enjoyed watching and recording.